Welcome to the channel of International Technological Corps. We are a NGO that focuses on leveraging technology to solve problems in the developing world, especially in Africa. And today we're going to be focusing on how the International Technological Corps is leveraging technology for educational development in Kenya. So this is a fairly broad topic in the sense that there's a lot technology can do to solve problems in the educational sector in Kenya. And in this particular video, we'll be focusing on exactly what we are doing to solve those problems. So basically, you need to understand that education is one of the most powerful tools for sustainable development in the long run. And Kenya is a very key region in Africa with great potential for innovation. But that potential takes a hit when education is not provided as it should be, or there are challenges to the provision of education. ITC has taken significant steps in its capabilities to harness the power of technology in addressing key educational challenges in the country. So first, before all of that, we first need to focus on what are the key educational challenges in Kenya. Right? Before we come to the solutions, we need to understand what were the key issues in the educational sector that ITC identified, realizing that these are the issues that we need to solve before we can actually bring an improvement or bring a change in the lives of many children. So first we need to understand that there's an access issue in Kenya. Let's use a relatively mundane color here. So there's an access issue. Yeah, let's not use black. So let's use this here. So there's an access issue in the Kenyan educational sector. Rural areas do not have access to quality education at all in any capacity. And while they might have education there, but quality education is not available. And that is an issue. That's a huge issue for people in Kenya. Because it's not just the people in the cities that have capabilities, or the children in the cities who are very capable. There are many children in the rural areas who are probably even more capable. An example of this comes from a Pakistani Nobel laureate who who won the physics prize basically, and the reason he came from a very rural village. And it was difficult to identify Mr. Abdus Salam if it wasn't luck. And it goes to show that major brain, there's a lot of capacity, a lot of ability in the rural areas of Africa that cannot be harnessed until we bring in well-trained teachers with high quality learning resources to them, to give them the same opportunity that any other child in the world has to succeed and to bring innovation and change to the world. Second major issue for us is the teacher-student ratios. What do we mean by that? So let's talk about the second issue. Teacher-student ratios, we define that as how many teachers are there for how many teachers are there for a single how many teachers are entertaining how many students, right? So that ratio is very low. So are there less teachers available for a lot of students, which makes it difficult for the teachers to actually get quality education and give enough time to each student, so they are actually able to progress, learn, and get better at what they're trying to learn. And that is a major challenge. That is another challenge that we want to resolve. And the issue for that challenge is that we have overcrowded classrooms, that is infrastructure, and then we have issue of shortage of qualified teachers that affect the quality of education in both urban and rural areas. Similarly, the third issue we need to realize is infrastructure, right, and resources. There's a lack of infrastructure and resources in Kenya that is being invested in education. So I'm just going to write infra here, and I think that should be more than enough to refer to that. The issue there is basically that infrastructure and infra resources, that we need a lot of resources to actually improve education. And the issue with most third world countries, including Kenya, is that in these countries resources are not resources are not given properly to to education, and that becomes a challenge because if you don't give enough resources you can't expect improvement, especially in the current age where digital infrastructure in the rural areas remains underserved, and limited access to internet access and outdated materials creates a huge issue for individuals. Similarly, we need to also focus on the last major issue that we identified, which is equitable education. So, education in marginalized communities, especially in rural areas, get the same quality of education as urban areas. So that again, that comes back to the fact that there's a rural-urban divide. You know, there where education quality might be very much better in urban areas, but in rural areas education quality is not as good, and that is again the issue is, potential is equal all across. So that is a major challenge for any individual who's trying to uh, or a government who's trying to increase educational access and ultimately increase the level of innovation and within their economy. That's a huge challenge for them. So keeping those challenges in mind, we'll now move towards basically what the ITC is doing in partnership with various local organizations and the Kenyan government to address these challenges. So ITC's approach to educational technology, let's go over that. Let me type that out. ITC's approach to educational challenges. That's our focus. So to educational technology for that matter. So ITC's approach to educational technology. Right. So the reason I'm writing this out here, we're going to go over exactly what ITC is doing with the collaboration of the Kenyan government to solve these problems. So our approach focuses on four basic pillars, right? Of four basic pillars of success, right? And that those pillars include as I'm going to paste on our screen right now. I don't want to waste a lot of time typing all of that. I'm just going to focus on exactly what we're trying to do. So these are the four pillars of educational technology that we identified, right? We need to create digital learning infrastructure. We need to focus on teacher empowerment. We need to focus on curriculum development and digital content, and we need to increase community engagement and digital inclusion within our strategy to improve educational access through educational technology in Kenya. So how are we doing that, right? So let's start in focusing on doubling down on each of these pillars and explaining what we are trying to do. So first is digital learning infrastructure. Let me bring that over here and let's focus on that. We have it here. Let's increase the size. Yeah. So when we talk about digital learning infrastructure, we need to understand that ITC has invested heavily in building infrastructure necessary to support modern education. So the most foremost of all of that is provision of digital technology. The Kenyan government has not invested a lot of money in digital technology for schooling, right? So digital devices and technology is something that we are helping the government invest in to help provision of education across rural areas. So that's our focus primarily. Why are we doing that, right? There's again like this there's very clear reasons why we need to do that, and quite simply speaking, ITC in collaboration with the Kenyan Ministry of Education has supplied digital tablets, laptops and other devices to schools in particularly underprivileged areas. These devices are preloaded with educational content and applications designed for self-paced learning. So you don't need to go to school. You don't need to have a teacher. You have all education that you need to learn in your tab, and using that tab, you can, push forward in your educational goals. And it's completely based on the pace of the individual themselves. Then there's internet connectivity. That's the second important aspect. We need to remember internet in the current day and age is the most important educational resource. People use it for other stuff, but remember, internet has a lot of utility in giving, in providing education, right? So internet access is something that we've been focusing on other than that, because it is essential for imparting up-to-date and most latest education to individuals across the world. So ITC has partnered with telecommunication companies to improve internet access in rural areas. Uh, Basically, while traditional fiber optic connections require infrastructure which requires a government level effort, unfortunately that might not be possible in some areas. So we're still trying to explore different ways we can do that. Particularly, we've been looking into satellite internet services by SpaceX or Amazon that we could leverage to provide the internet on a village to village basis. And the third thing in this particular pillar is tech enabled classrooms. We are focusing on how we can set up smart classrooms and help uh, smart classrooms in our in smart classrooms, basically on solving this issue basically. So what are tech enabled classrooms? These are classrooms that are equipped with digital whiteboards, projectors, learning management systems that provide interactive learning experiences. We're looking into how we can deploy these in rural areas and help people come and address the digital divide between people in rural and urban areas in Kenya. So with that, we'll move on to our second pillar. I think as we just covered the three pillars in digital infrastructure, let's move on to the second pillar that we are covering, that I think to address education challenges in Kenya, which is teacher empowerment. And this is also very important. While infrastructure is important on its own, and we've talked about that at length earlier, we need to understand that it's not just about technology to get access to information for students. It's also about helping students, teachers, empowering the teachers using technology to help them become better teachers, to impart knowledge in a better manner. So ITC has recognized that technology is the only effective tool that we can use in empowering teachers to capacity building programs. There are two aspects to teacher empowerment that we're doing. So first, we're doing digital literacy training. Get that clear. The first thing we're focusing on is digital literacy training. So what is that? So in digital literacy training, we're trying to promote literacy of teachers, capacity building programs using digital mediums. Basically, teachers in Kenya are being trained to integrate digital into the teaching material. Right? That's what we're trying to do. And ITC is providing online courses and workshops for teachers, guiding them on how to effectively use educational technology to manage digital classrooms and access tools through digital platforms. So that is basically what digital literacy training is, right? That's what the first thing we're focusing on. Second thing for teachers that we focus on in this particular environment is basically support networks for educators. ITC has created online communities of practice where educators of different regions can share the best practices, challenges, and innovation. This promotes continuous professional development, keeps educators updated on the latest educational trends. So the second is edtech network for teachers. That's what educational tech network for teachers. That was the second pillar in part of teaching. It helps them build community where they can come in, discuss issues, and how to solve them. Even if there's no one else, they can help them solve them. They help them in solving these issues, but they can come together and brainstorm issues themselves, or they can communicate with us through these networks. If a big amount of teachers help us understand the problems that's universal across different regions, we try to solve that problem for the teachers and bring solutions to technology for that. Basically, we enhanced teacher confidence and ability to use technology, and we need to make sure that these initiatives are sustainable and impactful. The third pillar in this particular case that we need to focus on is curriculum development and digital content. Now, this is very, very important. So for us, we need to realize that curriculum needs to be up to date. So in most third world countries, The same curriculum that parents studied is the same curriculum that's being taught today. Science changes every few years. Science updates itself every few years. So the notion of the matter is we need to develop localized and relevant, up-to-date digital content that aligns with the Kenyan government's educational goals, right? That's very, very important. So there's going to be three aspects to this, right? Number one, it's electronic learning platforms, right? So what do we mean by that? E-learning platforms. Basically, we can create web learning platforms where students across the spectrum, whether digital, rural, multiple regions, can come in and open those learning platforms and learn, right? Simply learn. Come in, open the platform, take their lessons, and learn. So that is the first focus we went on, right? A platform that can help students learn effectively, right? No matter where they are in Kenya, they can actually learn up-to-date, consistent knowledge that the Kenyan government wants them to learn through our e-learning platform. Number two, we need to remember that basically localized content is even more important for us in all of that, because one of the most significant contributions of ITC has been the creation of Kenyan specific educational content. We work with local educators, curriculum developers, and the ITC ensures that digital resources are culturally relevant and support Kenyans' educational objectives, such as the CBC, or the competency-based curriculum that the Kenyan government is especially emphasizing right now. Localization of curriculum is especially relevant because people learn best when knowledge aligns with their local customs, and that is what we try to do with curriculum localized curriculum here in Kenya within our digital platforms. Number three, we need to focus on another aspect to give me a second. Yeah, so number three, basically, we need to focus on STEM education. STEM education is the most essential part of any educational program. So that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? This is important because this is the future. This needs to be the up to date. This needs to be something that children are taught very, very effectively, because young learners, especially girls, through coding workshop, robotic clubs, and maker spaces, can experiment with technology and innovation and become the new leading voices in technology innovation and development in the world, especially in empowering Africans and Kenyans to move ahead in the 21st century job market. And finally, the fourth pillar, which is community engagement and digital inclusion. What do you mean by community engagement and digital inclusion? For education technology to be truly transformative, it must reach all members of society, not just one group of students. And at ITC, we have taken steps to involve entire communities in educational process, including digital inclusion. So we're trying to include as many people as we can other than students. These students can be, children's parents. They can also be students to learn, to develop their skills. And that's where ITC comes in. The fourth pillar is to engage community, whether regardless of your age, regardless of where you stand. We come in, we try to educate you in whatever you want to learn, to upskill you, to get better and better at what you're trying to do, right? So therefore, three things here as well. So we focus on parent community training, basically where we introduce programs aimed at training parents on how to use technology to support children learning, and but also how they can learn from this technology to improve their ability. Similarly, we also focus on public access to learning centers. We've created learning centers for marginalized communities, and these community learning hubs are areas without adequate school infrastructure. They offer free internet, digital learning resources, mentorship to both children and adults, and foster a culture of lifelong learning. And number three, we focus on digital literacy campaigns. ITC runs campaigns to promote digital literacy among all age groups, helping adults and non-school going youth gain skills that will improve their employability and increasing in an increasingly digital world. With all of that, we need to focus on the fact that ITC is also keen on measuring its results, right? So we track the progress of our data-driven impact assessments. These assessments look at student performance, enrollment and retention rates, and teacher engagement. Those are three metrics on which we constantly have an iterative loop through which we go over, get that data, and based on that data, improve our service delivery in educational sector using educational technology. In conclusion, ITC is playing a pivotal role in transforming education in Kenya through innovative use of educational technology by improving infrastructure, empowering teachers, developing localized digital content, and promoting community engagement. ITC's efforts are contributing to a more inclusive and equitable education system. With continued investment in educational technology and strong partnership between government, private sector, and international organizations, Kenya is well positioned to build an educational system that prepares its young population for digital age. Let's continue to support and explore new ways that technology can empower our future generations. Thank you.